If you read the headlines, you could be convinced that it isn't possible, that you would wonder if we can still solve tough social problems in the world today. What about urban gang violence? What do we do about that? Teen pregnancy, how do we curtail that? Violent crime is in the news all the time. So as citizens, we can feel helpless. We can think someone else is going to take care of that problem, or it's going to cost gazillions of dollars. The truth is, in the day and age in which we live, we know how to tackle society's most challenging problems. In the last 50 years, especially the last 15, we understand the root causes of those problems and the solutions to them far better than we ever have before. Those first three that I ran by you, gang violence, teen pregnancy, violent crime, all three of those have declined in half in the last generation. Who would know that from the headlines? But why do we make such progress on some social challenges, but not on others? So poverty since 1968 in America has flatlined. Public education in major American cities, we continue to increase the spending. Academic performance is flat. We have spent trillions on those two social issues. So we have money. We know solutions. What we are missing is connection. This system, this network of problem solvers, philanthropy, public resources, community members, nonprofit leaders, that system that I'm a part of, we are still too often siloed and disconnected. We have the answers in that network somewhere, and yet we still end up with thinking that is short-term, bright, shiny object, fragmented. So what does happen when we get connected? This guy's Mike Milken. He wasn't a particularly nice guy in the 80s. He went to jail for junk bonds. But when he got out, he had cancer. What he believed is there were researchers that had answers, but they were working in silos and they weren't sharing what they knew. That's the way they were incentivized to work. So what Milken said was, I will give money to research and I'll give it fast, but you got to do one thing. You got to share what you've learned. You've got to network with each other. So it turns out there were answers. They just needed to be connected. So this 10-year period here, that's the arc in which Milken helped to change the trajectory of prostate cancer. One of the world's leading prostate cancer surgeons said simply, Milken has done more for prostate cancer research than anyone in America. Not bad for a former criminal. All right, another example that's very visceral to me. I lived in Los Angeles in the late 80s, gang violence. At that time, it seemed utterly impossible to stop it. I still remember helping my wife move into Hoover Street Elementary to teach her first day of school at the biggest elementary school west of the Mississippi. There were gang members all around that neighborhood. And at that time, the Los Angeles Police Department's strategy was called Operation Hammer. It was essentially brutal force. It failed. Today, in neighborhoods all over Los Angeles, after all these years, people like these folks have come together to hammer out solutions. So the woman that's in the black and white jacket, the sixth from the left, that's Cynthia Mendenhall. She was a member of the Crips when I lived there. The LAPD was her enemy. That guy, that officer in the middle with a mustache, that's Charlie Beck. He worked the beat where Cynthia grew up. Today, he's the head of LAPD. Citizens like these folks and thousands more like them have changed the game. Officers now walk the neighborhood and they connect more with the community. Community members meet regularly with the police to help them understand gang members. All those connections and many more human connections just like it, when you add them all up, they make the difference. They've added gang intervention workers to the solution. Parents, community, police, all more connected. Sounds too simple. Homicides are way down in the last 20 years. Assaults are down 2/3 in just the last 10 years alone. There's a footnote to this story. So a few years ago, one of Cynthia Mendenhall's sons was gunned down mistakenly in a drive-by gang shooting. So at the hospital where they had tried to save his life, some Bloods and some Crips gathered together. In the words of the LA Times, the mood at that moment was murderous. At the request of the police, Mrs. Mendenhall walked outside and she asked everybody to join her later that day for a prayer vigil. The crowd dispersed. In that moment, on that day, for that place, the cycle of violence stopped. Mendenhall was honored by the LAPD as a peacemaker, and they gave her a police escort to her son's funeral. Wow. Prostate cancer, gang violence, intractable problems that we have made radical progress on because we connected the right people in the right ways. We have money. We have solutions to the challenges that vex our society the most, including public education in major urban areas, which has been so hard to move forward. One school that is proving that public education can work in an urban area is White Center Elementary, which is in my hometown of Seattle. The principal there, Ann Reese, and her 27 teachers, they have reconfigured the way that they work in horizontal and vertical cross-class, cross-grade learning and curriculum teams. They've connected way more with parents out in the community. This should start to sound familiar. It's just like LA with different actors on a different stage. In the last 2 years, in both math and reading, at all grade levels in that school, they have made double-digit percentile increases in academic performance compared to all the schools in Washington State. That is amazing. Yeah. So the most important character and plot line in every one of those three stories is the right people networked together in the right ways. I've spent 17 years down the block and literally around the world. We're working with people just like them. They are you and me. They're not superheroes. I still remember one thing Mrs. Reese told me one day. She said, "It's not that I can do this work for my students, it's that I can't not." I love the grit and I can't not. So if you are somebody that just can't not make a difference in this world, in your community, go find a solution that exists. They're out there. Don't assume that money is the biggest barrier. It's not. It matters. It's not the biggest missing piece. And go find that network. Go find that cause where you can go deeper and stick with it longer. Networks do give us answers to social problems. Individual citizens make networks work. Mike Milken, Cynthia Mendenhall, Ann Reese, philanthropist, parent, teacher, from all walks of life. How each of us live our lives matters. Not a little bit, but a hell of a lot. So wanting to change the world is not new. Knowing how possible it is and how powerful a role each of us can play in it, that is new. Keep having a great day, Fargo. Thank you.